So, today we're going to dive into the story of one of the most brilliant, influential, and, let's be honest, profoundly controversial spiritual teachers of the 20th century, Chogyam Trungpa. This was a Tibetan master who basically broke every rule in the book, and in doing so, he forced everyone around him, and now us, to question everything we think we know about what it means to be enlightened.
This quote right here, it gets you straight to the heart of his mission. For him, this wasn't some kind of abstract philosophy. He genuinely saw himself operating in what he called a dark age, a world just drowning in materialism, where real wisdom was fading away. And he felt this incredible burning urgency to do something about it.
And his whole mission, it really began with a complete catastrophe. When the Chinese army invaded Tibet, the spiritual paradise that he knew, it turned into a hell on earth, almost overnight. Ancient teachings that had been nurtured for centuries were suddenly on the verge of being completely wiped out. Forever.
So to save those teachings, the young Trungpa led this group of 300 people on a desperate 10-month escape over the Himalayas. Can you even imagine? They hid by day and traveled by night, and they faced starvation so bad that they were literally forced to chop up and boil their own leather shoes and bags just to have something to eat. It was an absolutely unimaginable ordeal.
Surviving that journey, well, it completely solidified his life's purpose. He came out of it believing he'd been entrusted with this sacred task to carry the deep wisdom of Tibetan Buddhism over to the West before it was lost for good. The fate of these ancient teachings, it really felt like it rested on his shoulders.
So when he first showed up in the West, he totally looked apart. A young, serene-looking monk in traditional robes. But underneath that surface, a really deep conflict was brewing. He felt like he couldn't just stand apart from the Western world if he was actually going to teach Westerners.
And this captures his problem perfectly. On one hand, people wanted this idealized golden Buddha, a perfect master they could put up on a pedestal. But Trungpa felt he had to get his hands dirty. He had to dive right into the slime and muck of Western culture to really get its suffering and to learn to speak its language. The last thing he wanted to be was some kind of museum piece.
And then came this brutal catalyst, a car accident in Scotland. And get this, he crashed his car through a joke shop window. It's such a surreal detail. The accident left the entire left side of his body paralyzed, and that physical shattering, it became the trigger for a complete spiritual reinvention.
Right after the accident, he said this to his wife, and it tells you everything about his mindset at this huge turning point. He saw two paths forward: go crazy or attain realization. He chose realization, and in that moment, he shattered the whole persona of the monk, gave up his vows, and just embraced this completely radical new way of being and teaching.
And this new path, this became his most famous and definitely his most misunderstood contribution. It's the path of crazy wisdom. Now, this wasn't about being randomly eccentric. No, it was a deliberate, often really shocking method, and it was designed to cut right through a student's deepest layers of ego and self-deception.
So, what even is crazy wisdom? Well, the term itself is a direct translation that means wisdom gone wild. I mean, how cool is that? It's all about taking this fearless leap beyond all your fixed ideas, spiritual ones, material ones, all of them, and diving straight into the raw, unpredictable nature of reality itself.
So this gives you an idea of what crazy wisdom actually looked like in action. He wasn't just giving lectures. Picture this. He invites his hippie students to a party and tells them to bring their marijuana, only to grab it all and throw it in a fire while chanting, "We are burning self-deception." Or, in another case, he secretly had posts removed from a meditation hall because he noticed students were leaning against them to doze off. And maybe the most famous one, he made his counterculture followers cut their long hair and wear business suits. It was a direct attack on the very identity they were so attached to.
But here's the thing. His vision went way beyond these individual shock tactics. He wasn't just trying to create a few enlightened people here and there. No. He was trying to lay the groundwork for an entire enlightened society right here in the West.
And he didn't just talk about it. He built it. Look at this list. He founded Naropa University, the first Buddhist-inspired university in North America. He created Shambhala training, a secular path of meditation for everyone. He developed something called Dharma art to infuse creativity with a sense of sacredness. He even established a Buddhist military to work directly with the energy of aggression. His vision was totally all-encompassing.
But, and this is a huge but, this revolutionary approach came with some profound controversies that make his legacy incredibly complex.
It's just really difficult to define. You simply cannot talk about his brilliance without also addressing the chaos.
And at the heart of it all were three things. One, he drank heavily, a habit that almost certainly led to his death at just 47 years old. Two, he had numerous sexual relationships with his female students. And three, his public behavior could be absolutely outrageous. He would sometimes show up to teach completely drunk, deliberately shattering that image of the calm, serene spiritual master.
So you have to wonder, how did his followers deal with this? Well, for some, the key was his absolute transparency. See, unlike other gurus whose scandals were always kept secret, Trungpa put it all right out in the open. As this student points out, they knew exactly who he was, flaws and all, so they never felt like he was deceiving them.
Of course, others had a much more conflicted view. This student acknowledges the fantastically useful work he did, but at the same time, they mourn the undeniable harm his addiction to alcohol caused. It was a flaw that cut a brilliant life and mission way too short.
This quote, right here, perfectly captures the paradox that so many of his followers still live with. They're left in this space of, I don't know. They can't explain it all away or make it okay, but they can't fully condemn it either. They're just forced to live with this profound, unsettling ambiguity about the man they followed.
And maybe the most telling reflection of all comes from his own wife, Diana Mukbo. She said that even after 17 years of marriage, she'd sometimes just look at him and think, I have no idea who you are. He remained, even to the person closest to him, just completely unfathomable.
And so we're left with the ultimate question, aren't we? Was Chogyam Trungpa just a flawed genius whose addictions ultimately overshadowed his incredible gifts? Or was his crazy wisdom a kind of radical, necessary medicine for a deeply troubled materialistic world? Was it madness? Or was it the exact kind of wisdom a dark age really needs? That's the puzzle he leaves behind for all of us.
Please click like and then subscribe. Also share this video with your friends. Thank you.